But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? To threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear.
Nothing could have prepared her for this dramatic encounter after Charlie Kirk's $100 million lawsuit against The View, despite Sunny Hostin's prior involvement in controversial topics. The sparkles that sparkled as the courtroom and studio met might light up a whole city. As soon as the case made headlines, there was a sense of tension on that afternoon stage. Viewers at home saw the tempest building as Sunny Hostin's composure began to falter. She was obviously upset, not just annoyed, her anger exploding into a full-fledged explosion. Charlie Kirk did not pretend to be a visitor this time. He rushed in as an opponent with the force of a lawful thunderclap. The $100 million amount was more than just a figure. The message was engraved onto a stone. Whether the point of view liked it or not, responsibility was coming.
Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
Regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after 5,000 students at our event there, of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country, that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be...
It was less of a conversation and more of a televised failure. Whoopi Goldberg, often the queen of eye rolls, could only stare in disbelief as her co-star fell. Nothing could stop the explosion that Sunny was unleashing in front of millions of people, no matter how big or dazzling it was. Charlie Kirk stood his ground and resisted the outpouring of rage that was aimed at him. His calm demeanor made Sunny's reaction appear even more frantic, as if his very steadiness was stoking her inner fire. And the number of 100 million lingered over everything like a great shadow. The real amount was shocking, absurd, and made news. There was more at risk than just damages. It was an ethical issue, and Kirk was determined to show the consequences of irresponsible speech. Sunny said that Kirk's lawsuit was a ruse during his tirade, but when her hands trembled and her speech trailed off, the audience knew that there was fear beneath the flames. For once, the legal expert was on the side of the defense. It was hard to ignore the irony. A woman who was always showing off her legal credentials, as if they were a badge of honor, was now being thrown into a legal predicament that she was unable to escape by laughing or lecturing. The courtroom was no longer just an idea. She was staring at reality. The perspective has long been accused of turning discussion into action. But suddenly the deed backfired. As Kirk pushed the issue into the legal sphere, Sunny ended up generating headlines as she sobbed in front of millions of people rather than leading a conversation. Charlie Kirk made it clear that there were others engaged. The thousands of young people his program assisted were the reason. He refused to let their identities be tarnished by careless comments and TV show trickery.
Disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women, who did about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here, because they voted 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever.
Uncomfortably as Sunny's tirade became louder and her arguments more scattered. The crowd, used to cheering with the speakers, stood still, divided between sympathy and awe. Was this midday drama or a complete breakdown? That was beyond question. No one was anticipating a professional, well-rehearsed performance. The chaos was pure mayhem. The $100 million lawsuit has turned the View set into a battleground. Anger and resistance clashed in a way that would alter the program's trajectory forever. There was no rehearsed banter or easy laughing. In a heated debate that seemed more like desperation than reason, Sunny Hostin pointed at him and raised her voice. She was so disturbed by Kirk's legal blow that it was evident in every word she spoke.
Myth that is rooted in bigotry, trying to classify based on their skin color. If you are a racist, you have something to apologize for. If you're a white person who is not a racist, you have nothing to apologize for. And anyone who makes you apologize just based on the color of their skin, they're the racist and you're not.
Turning Point conference. Were in the front of turn out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs, and
I think it's important that every person that attended that turning point, every Republican speak up against the swastikas, against the flower wave.
You let them in.
President, open your
You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
But Charlie Kirk hardly gave a flinch. His confidence seemed to grow even more when Sunny collapsed before him. For him, this was more than just a TV rivalry. It illustrated the importance of his case. The world watched as the arrogance of the media crumbled. And at the moment, the difference was noticeable. On one side, Kirk stood immovable, solid and composed. In contrast, Sunny Hostin erupted like a volcano, her own fury eroding her composure. His silence was the best answer there was. Each time Sunny's voice raised, Kirk just stared calm, letting her anger highlight the precise reason he was there. The suit has other problems than defamation. It was about setting boundaries in a culture that accepts irresponsible comments as casual banter. Kirk demanded accountability for $100 million, and Sunny's ranting couldn't stop him.
You guys thought that abortion was going to be this quite zealot religious issue? I'm pro-life. If people aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are issues that should animate and drive our politics other than the very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Because the media was forcing this as an up-down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things.
The co-hosts looked at each other anxiously, not knowing whether they should step in or let Sunny burn herself out. Joy Behar leaned forward and tried to start a conversation with a joke, but the chaos erupting around the table drowned out her remarks. Even Whoopi's famous frown couldn't extinguish the flames. She clearly saw that this was not going to be another heated dispute because she sat stiff, her eyes wide, her lips pulled tight. It might have been terrible and had real legal teeth. Before, The View had been criticized, but this time it was different. This Twitter craze was not going to go away quickly. A TV tantrum. Finally, Kirk's tone was sharp yet cool. This isn't about me. There is a problem with the truth.
To talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money, and your students definitely could too.
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point US. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View said that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside.
The weak foundation of Sunny's anger was exposed by that single statement, which broke through the din. At that emotional moment, the studio seemed to freeze. Sunny retorted that the lawsuit was an attack on the right of free speech. But she didn't convey it well. It was chaotic, emotional, and terrifying. The audience did not see it as a defense of beliefs. Kirk thrived on desperation, and it seemed to be a desperate effort. He reminded the audience that having the right to free speech does not mean that one is immune to consequences. His comments slammed like hammers, shattering the notion that The View could denigrate anybody without repercussion. Rather of cheering, the audience let out gasps and murmurs. They were not seeing an argument. On national TV, arrogance was being demolished. Sunny stated as he leaned forward, "The lawsuit is just a distraction."
Achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question, and her whole question is exactly why rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can knowledge and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's not.
She spoke loudly and tremblingly. However, the terrified flashes in her eyes, which seemed to show that she was aware of the walls closing in, tricked her. Kirk went on like he was a prosecutor. "Your words don't just vanish. They damage lives," he said. The case was not only legal but also moral, and millions of people saw it unfold in real time. The panel tried to shift the topic in an effort to regain control of the show, but the tension remained.
Again, Turning Point USA hosted a riveting event in Florida called the Student Action Summit. Outside of the event were individuals waving flags and engaged in their activities. Well, on Monday's show, members of The View had a few comments about it.
The conservative group, Turning Point USA, has condemned the group of neo and said nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was this? Is what I want to know.
But you let them in. You let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So
Whoopi's voice sounded irritated when she did speak. This is ridiculous. But even her mic could not save the performance from the storm that had already swept it away. As Sonny's anger grew, the cameras panned in on Kirk, who leaned back and seemed to be as calm as ever. The difference was undeniable. Because one was solid and the other was spinning, the audience could decide who seemed stronger. Social media took off. Sonny's eruption was captured on video and went viral. In a matter of minutes, timelines were flooded with memes and hashtags were widely used. Ironically, the public opinion court had previously ruled in favor of the lawsuit meant to hold the perspective accountable. Charlie Kirk had forced Sonny Hostin to expose the very delusion he was fighting for before he had ever stepped into a courtroom. When the cameras shifted to commercial, the damage was already done. The breakdown was finished. The matter was more urgent than before, and Sonny Host's outburst had solidified its image on television. Instead of calming the chaos, returning after the commercial break made things worse. Tension hung in the air like smoke after a fire, and the roar of Sonny Hostin's detonation was still very much there. The audience felt the weight of a debate that had completely gone wrong. Charlie Kirk leaned forward and talked strongly but slowly. This is more than one comment. It is related to a culture of irresponsible speaking. Sonny ran back right away. As she spoke louder, the holes in her voice only widened. This was not a matter of strength. It was collapsing in real time. The panel seemed to be broken. Joy Baha remained silent. Whoopi was annoyed, and Sonny was out of control. The View wasn't very proud at this time. Of all, it was the most disastrous. Uncut and live. There was a cry from someone who realized the electricity had been lost. Kirk stayed calm as he delivered the killer sentence. Words and deeds have consequences. Instead of being a defense, her rage may be seen as her downfall. Charlie Kirk's unvarnished, raw, and unforgettable meltdown turned a talk show into a courtroom, leaving viewers wondering whether The View would ever be able to recover from the $100 million storm he unleashed.